Hello again from Metro Manila, the Philippines, Southeastern Asia. The polls either have closed or are closing now in the European Union's parliamentary elections. In those countries, a majority of the 28 countries which are holding or have held the European Union parliamentary elections today. Several countries did, however, hold them earlier, starting already this Thursday. And it seems so far that the expected big gains for the populist right-wing, national conservative, far-right, Eurosceptic, anti-Islam and anti-immigrant parties are not at least fully materializing. Rather, in several countries, there has been a rise, or at least a steady liberal vote, steady support for the liberal parties, or one of them anyway. And then, according to the exit polls, big gains for the Greens, especially in Germany, where the Greens are set to become the second largest party in that country's contingent of 96 members of the European Parliament. The center-right Christian Democrats still would remain as the largest party with something like 28%, but the Greens would get over 20%. The Christian Democrats' coalition partners at the federal level in Germany, the Social Democrats, would get under 16% of the vote, while the Eurosceptic and right-wing populist Alternative for Germany would remain, according to the first exit poll, below 11% of the vote. But these are still estimates. We don't know what will happen. In France, anyway, according to the latest opinion polls, only the Liberal President Emmanuel Macron's La République en Marche, or the Republic on March, would be ahead of the far-right Rassemblement National, or National Rally party of the controversial Miss Marine Le Pen. In Britain, the Brexiteers are likely to do very well, while the ruling Conservatives are likely to do very badly. In the Netherlands, surprisingly, the Social Democrats, who had lost a great majority of their seats in the national parliamentary elections of 2017, became the largest party in the EU Parliament, according to an exit poll. In Germany, according to the exit poll I referred to, the Greens doubled their share of the parliamentary vote compared to the 2014 European Union parliamentary elections. And then, if confirmed, this could mean further problems for the outgoing German federal chancellor or Prime Minister Angela Merkel, because she has already announced, she did that already back in October 2018, that she would not seek a second term, or no, not a second term, but a record fifth term as the German federal chancellor in 2021, but would retire from politics. Her prospective successor has already been chosen, a fellow Christian Democrat, Mrs. Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer. And should the coalition parties do badly in these EU parliamentary elections, that might increase pressure on Federal Chancellor Merkel to quit already this year and allow Mrs. Kramp-Karrenbauer to try her hand at the helm of the German federal cabinet. But this is still speculation. In Germany, it is difficult, very difficult, compared to most other parliamentary democracies, to get rid of the federal chancellor or prime minister between elections, unless, of course, his or her coalition government has lost its effective or functioning majority in the Bundestag, which is the German federal parliament's lower house, because short of the federal chancellor's coalition government's loss of its majority in the recent elections, there are only two ways, one direct and one indirect, to replace the federal chancellor between elections. The first one, the much more common one, although even it has been used fairly rarely, and it has only once been successful at the federal level. That was back in 1982, 8 years before the two Germanys reunited. It is for the opposition to put forward a candidate for federal chancellor through a constructive vote of no confidence, where the opposition declares at the same time that it has no confidence, or the Bundestag has no confidence in the incumbent federal chancellor, and that the Bundestag therefore chooses the opposition's candidate for federal chancellor in the place of the incumbent, and that the federal president, who is the titular or ceremonial head of state of Germany, must then dismiss the federal chancellor. Only one German federal chancellor has been replaced in this way. The late Social Democrat Helmut Schmidt, back in 1982, had to make way for Christian Democrat Helmut Kohl, who also has passed away by now. The indirect way is if the federal chancellor requests a vote of confidence from the Bundestag, does not receive it, and then either a new federal chancellor is chosen within the next 21 days, which then will force the federal chancellor to resign, or then the Bundestag does not manage to elect a new federal chancellor, in which case the incumbent federal chancellor can ask the federal president to dissolve the German Bundestag and order early parliamentary elections in order to resolve this cabinet crisis. In 1972 and in 1982, this move was successful on the part of the incumbent federal chancellor to help him win early parliamentary elections. However, the first chancellor who tried this maneuver and succeeded temporarily, the late Social Democrat Willy Brandt, had to resign because of a spy scandal already some 1.5 years before, some 1.5 years after those early elections. However, Federal Chancellor Kohl was able to get a full term as the head of a Christian liberal coalition government, and as we know, he served as the German Federal Chancellor for 16 years, from 1982 to 1998, the first 8 years as the Federal Chancellor of West Germany, the last 8 years as the Federal Chancellor of the reunited Germany. But in 2005, this move backfired. The Social Democratic Federal Chancellor Gerhard Schröder, who had been bogged down in his socio-economic reforms by the existence of an opposition majority in the Bundesrat, the upper house of German federal parliament, and because the Social Democrats had lost ground, lost votes and seats in a recent state legislative election, he decided to ask for a vote of no confidence, and then instructed enough deputies of his already narrow and shaky coalition with the Greens to abstain from voting so that he would lose the election and lose the vote, and would be able to ask the federal president to call a new election. Well, what happened was that indeed he got those new elections. However, he narrowly lost them, or his party narrowly lost them to the Christian Democrats, and then a couple of months of negotiations ensued, and eventually he agreed to step down so that a grand coalition of Christian Democrats and Social Democrats could be formed under his opponent and then successor, Mrs. Angela Merkel. So let's see what happens in Germany as a result of these elections.